So very recently, we got some massive new information on some new content coming to World of Warcraft, most likely within this expansion. And this information comes from a panel called Evolving Azeroth at PAX East, where a handful of World of Warcraft developers talked a bit about the history of World of Warcraft, and then it gave us some actual new information on new content coming. The main one I want to go over in this video is that we have finally gotten it confirmed that Legion Remix is our next remix event, which we've gotten massive amounts of teases of this. We almost got it confirmed from Ian Hazzikosis where he directly teased it, but now this is the first time we have actually gotten it confirmed, and we actually got two massive pieces of information on what is going to be coming with Legion Remix. Now, before we get into those details, we did get a little bit of additional information that we don't have an official date for the Legion Remix yet. Based upon the roadmap, it does seem like it will be in the War Within, most likely during the time that we would normally be getting a Season 4, because it doesn't seem we're getting a Season 4 in the War Within. And they also mentioned that they have been hard at work figuring out how they're going to do all of the systems in Legion, because remember, Legion was the start of the Borrowed Power expansions, so there is a ridiculous amount of systems within that expansion. You have the artifact weapons, you have the progression of that, you have the different slottable items that go into your artifact weapons, you have the Netherlight Crucible later in the expansion, then you even have things like the order halls that they could tie something else into that as well. So there's just a lot of really big systems in that expansion that they could tie power systems from Remix back into, and they have to do a lot of work around how that's all going to be implemented. And then I didn't even mention you also have something like a legendary system. But then that brings us to the two new pieces of information on new things actually coming with Remix, and these are honestly so big that these honestly feel like not only a bit of a test for the future of World of Warcraft as a whole, but something that they very well may want to implement in some more permanent or reoccurring fashion. The first thing is Mythic Plus in Legion Remix, because Mythic Plus was originally introduced with Legion. So they said, wouldn't it be cool if you could do Mythic Keystones with the wild item scaling of Remix and to see how far you can go with that? They think it'll be really fun for players to find new ways to completely break the system, so Mythic Plus will be fully available in Legion Remix, and we know based upon last Remix that there is definitely going to be some completely different system of progression. Like when we go back to Mists of Pandaria Remix, we had completely different ways to progress. We had completely different gear with all of these slottable gems. We had basically infinite power scaling with our cloak with infinitely increasable stats. Then we had the new actual usable abilities from our gems and our gear. And if you played a lot of Mists of Pandaria Remix, especially if you played it throughout the entirety of its duration, your characters just essentially became gods at some point. So depending on how many borrowed power systems we get to keep from Legion and how many new power systems get introduced from the Remix event specifically, you will probably be seeing some ridiculously high Mythic Plus keys, and I am very excited to do that. I really enjoy Mythic Plus, and just the optimization and min-maxing of Mythic Plus players is going to be so massive when it comes to Legion Remix, and I think it's going to bring in a lot of players that might have not been super interested in the first Remix event to just go into the Legion Remix event and just spam run Mythic Plus and see how strong you can get and to optimize that. So that'll definitely be something that has a ridiculous amount of replayability. And then the second new piece of content is something I have very much been wanting for World of Warcraft, and that is a more difficult open world. So for those players that find more enjoyment in the open world, the team is excited to try a new experiment in Remix's more closed system, introducing a new increased difficulty world tier inspired by Diablo. Called the Shattered Timeline, where everything went worse, it will challenge open world players in new exciting ways. So they explained this as pretty much exactly like world tiers from Diablo. If you've never played, say, Diablo 4, you would have world tiers where you could just increase your world tier as you unlock more of them, and it would just increase the difficulty of everything in the game. So if you just went out to kill some random enemies in the open world, the higher world tier you were, the more difficult difficult those enemies would be. It scales everything up, and they're specifically doing this in Legion Remix with the Shattered Timeline system, where you can increase the world tier of the open world specifically to make it more challenging. And they explained that imagine it's a different timeline where everything was a lot worse and every enemy and everything you have to do was a lot more challenging. And this is just something I have been wanting, not necessarily this system specifically, but a system to allow you to increase the difficulty, at least when you were doing like the main campaign quest of a new expansion. Because even as the story got much better in the War Within, the pacing got much better. When you're out in the open world, just questing, killing things, and then getting to like the bosses of the main quest, they're all just pushovers. They all just instantly die. If there's other players around, they instantly die even quicker. So having this possibility of increasing the outdoor world's difficulty by potentially a lot is super exciting, and it just works really well in Remix content because everything you're doing in Remix is completely worth it. You can just be killing random enemies out in the open world in Remix and still be getting permanent stat increases. Not as fast if you were doing more optimal ways, but everything is still worthwhile to do in these Remix events. So I think it's going to work very well, and this definitely seems to also be a test for some future things in the game as a whole. Now, this is all of the information we got for Legion Remix at this PAX East panel, but I do think we have previously gotten a little bit of teased information from the first teaser reveal of housing. If you remember, this was all at the same Warcraft showcase where we got a roadmap that was teasing Legion Remix on it, and then we also got the teaser reveal of housing. Now, in that teaser reveal of housing, it was a warrior that walked into the house and he placed down his weapon and sat down on a chair. Now, what's super interesting is that warrior was wearing the new tier 2 remakes, so it was a warrior. No other class can wear that warrior tier set, so it was a warrior character. That warrior set down a weapon they can't actually use. It was a sword, but it was one of the rogue's artifact weapon appearances. One of the rogue specs in Legion had an artifact appearance that was like a rogue version of Thunder Fury, and it was a one-handed sword, and it just looked like a completely modern version of Thunder Fury. It was not the same design as the original Thunder Fury. The blade was kind of these broken up bits of blade that were kind of held together by the electricity. The original Thunder Fury was a full blade and was flat at the sides. This is a completely different weapon, just it's the rogue version of Thunder Fury. But again, that was an artifact appearance. No other classes could use that. And my theory with this was that because they were teasing Legion Remix, that this was showing that they are going to open up the artifact weapon appearances to be usable by any other class that can use that weapon type. So that rogue weapon is a one-handed sword. So anybody that could use one-handed swords, like a warrior, could be able to use all of those artifact appearances once Legion Remix is released. And I think that's just a really big quality of life addition to the game, just allowing that. Because remember, in Legion, there pretty much weren't weapon drops. There were a few cosmetic weapon drops, but there were no actual weapon drops. It was all artifacts and artifact appearances. So it would make sense for them to go back and allow all of the classes that can use that weapon type to use all of the artifact appearances from all of the different classes. And it would be a perfect time to introduce that into the game with Legion Remix being released and allowing everybody to play all these different classes in a different way in Legion and go earn all of those artifact appearances that may be much more difficult or annoying to earn these days. Now, I'm not saying that the original Mage Tower artifact appearances will be re-added in. I assume those actually won't be re-added, but all of the other artifact appearances, or a lot of them, were actually much easier or much more straightforward to earn in Legion. If you go back and try to get some of those now, there's really weird workarounds. You have to do this quest or do this weird thing, and some of them are kind of unearnable now. So it would make sense that they open that up while giving everybody a much easier opportunity to go earn all of those artifact appearances for all of the other classes or specs they may have not played. So I am very excited for everything we got to learn about Legion Remix. I loved Miss Pandaria Remix, and I think Legion Remix is going to be even crazier because of how many different systems were actually in that expansion, especially with having Mythic Plus, with having just a lot more content in general, and then this new world tier system for outdoor content. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.